So good afternoon, everybody. Compliments from Digital South Africa. Today's session is to discuss about how you can use Digital South Africa for your work, especially now that we're in the coast, looking at coastal ecosystem. So I'm looking more on how you can monitor your coastlines in Africa using Digital South Africa. So Digital South Africa program was set up 5 years ago with the mission of serving all stakeholders from government, scientists, private sector, and civil society, including also the young people like CBOs. And the mission is to provide this data freely accessible to all stakeholders and empower decision making. It's based on open data. So Digital South Africa is working with partners across the continent. We have one in Kenya called Regional Center for Mapping for Resources for Development, where I met some of your members at Youth Power at RCMRD. We also have other partners, South Africa, North Africa, West Africa, and Central Africa. And Digital South Africa platform is powered by Amazon Web Services. It operates on open data cube technology. And we work with partners in terms of validation and providing these data sets to different partners, and also providing it in a format that it's well understood. And some of the continental services we have, it's like the coastline service, which I'll be able to show you and demonstrate. So access to Digital South Africa data is through the Digital South Africa map, very easy, like Google Maps. Then we also have Sandbox for making some analysis. Then you also have access to other GIS software, like one of your colleagues shared something like a story map, very much possible. Then also we have our free online courses that will be able to show you and help you connect and register. So we have various opportunities, like for today's context, how we can monitor mangroves as well as coast erosion in our coasts. And for mangrove analysis, I'll be able to show you one of the examples around Mida Creek, where we worked with someone from Kefri. So here we use Sentinel-2 images at 10 meters, and we look at vegetation index and see how it has changed over time. Then on the coastal erosion, we load various examples using the data called Landsat is from NASA in the US, and the one Sentinel-1 and 2 is from European Space Agency. So this is the example how we can monitor some of the mangroves. This is the example of Mida Creek, and I was working with someone from Kefri who was able to give me some information that some of these areas maybe were rebuilt or were prone, and how mangroves were. And we could see some of the mangroves were stable in yellow, and some new ones around this side, and some which were a little bit purple or red, which maybe were destroyed. And that's just an example for mangroves. For the coastline service, this one is for the whole continent, covering 38 countries. And we've worked with partners across the continent to do the validation. And it's the first one in Africa for coastline monitoring. And also we are working with partners like Esri as well to make sure it's available on the ArcGIS platform and story maps, and just showing you that you can monitor over 24 years of coastline, and we can get an idea about the hotspots of the area. Some of the areas, maybe you grew up in the coast, and look at the rates of change and the averages per year. Very impactful for addressing coast erosion. So we can load this coastline data in your Digital South Africa map. This is just an example of how it's done. Then I'll be able to show you a small demonstration of the Digital South Africa map, where we click Explore Map and we click the Digital South Africa coastline. And as we share the recording of this session today, we can be able to organize for another follow-up workshop as well, and also opportunities for you to see how some of your coastlines work. And some of these you can access using also your mobile phone, even going to the ground and seeing if you could also conduct some ground collection or validation some of the areas. So as you can see from East Africa, West Africa, we are covered, and showing you some areas which have changed even more than 5 meters or 10 meters or even beyond. Some areas have gained, some areas have been lost. And this is very useful with satellite imagery going back 20 years to see how the situation was 10 years ago or 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago when Kenya was planning to start a coastal integrated map for the coastline areas. So this is some of the ideas we have, and just looking at some areas, you can zoom in and get the dynamics of the mangroves, how they have changed, how the mangrove areas has gained, or how some of the areas have been lost. And also working with the communities in terms of coastal, management, restoration, even working with the communities to see where we can do replanting of mangroves or even areas which you can do some validation. So this was just an example of in Ghana where we're working with a partner to see how they were validating the coastline, and they were able to see that this is quite accurate based on another tool that they were doing the comparison with. So this is very useful for us, also getting a comparison across the continent, getting the feedback, or even like sharing experts. So you're within Digital South Africa, you're within a community of experts. So we can be able to conduct digital, have coastal erosion, and also we can generate coastlines. So for the example, the coastal erosion, this one normally involve the Digital South Africa running some sets of processes, algorithms, and we are using Sentinel-2 at 10 meters from the European Space Agency. And where there's no images, it can reference to Landsat data from NASA. It's at 30 meters, and this goes back 1984, so it's a long-term data set. And from these, we're able to conduct a coastline area based on these assessments. So it fairly takes a few minutes or so, but this is an example of some area in Comoros, Fomboni, just looking at the area which has changed over time. And this was area around the town of Comoros, looking at different years, different dates, and the situation is different. We could also do the same for Mombasa, for example, just going back in time and plotting this from the year 2000 even to the year 2023. It's quite an asset when you move from different dates and getting that comparison, even going around to DADOCs, etc., etc. So we have this as an example of a demonstration. So if now I take you through this coastal erosion, it's one of the notebooks in the real world example, and we are able to run coastal assessment where we put in the coordinates of the area. Then we run through the algorithms. It's just an example for Comoros, for example, and it will take a few minutes, and it will be able to tell you the time it used, and it will give you a very nice product that you can use and even export, even comparing in with tidal heights, etc., and be able to generate a good product that you could present to some of your stakeholders. This is very a key, very good resource. You can see over time, you could get a comparison and see how it works for your work, and even generate more information for your reports and assessment, and even share with other reports and see how areas have changed over time, either positive or not so good, and even recommending something for the government and other stakeholders that they can use in the various reports, especially when they engage with the communities. This is a very good product, working especially with the validation of the various partners. So the same we can do the coastal erosion you've seen. Then also we can also generate coastlines. This one is a folder within the datasets folder, just generating the years per year. So you just put in your coordinates. So this one I used somewhere in North Africa. And I was working with a particular person who was interested to know why this town, which is more of a trade and coastal town, has changed over time, and looking at the rates of change. Some areas have gained, some areas have lost because of different government policies and even awareness among the different stakeholders. You can even measure how much this one has changed. And also finally, you can generate an extract of the area which has changed. So it's basically zooming into the region and getting the distance and getting the extract of an area. So this is just for demonstration purpose. And of course, we'll be able to plan for another session just to see how we can work these for specific areas. So this I was showing you how you can get the measurements from different times. And also Digital Africa has worked with Esri to generate a story map where now we put the coastline service on the relevant symposium atlas. And what we can see is I'll be able to present them. I'll be able to I'll be able to start the question at the right time. Just a few minutes before I do the opportunity for any question and answer. So in this particular example, looking in the case of Kenya, we can look at how much has gained or how much has retreated as a cost and the affected population. And also I had this example somewhere. So also I worked with someone from Kefri. They were sharing an example of how they used some of our data sets, and they were presenting this during one of those wetland days. And they were showing the mangroves around, this was around Sabaki area. And we're able to see areas which have gained mangroves and areas which have lost. And this particular scientist has been working on different scenarios and is based in Malindi. So looking at different experts and how they are working. Then our coastline data is also available on the Africa geoportal, which is very key. And here I'll be able to show you just an example that on this Africa geoportal, you can be able to move to any of these towns and see how much built up area is or communities impacted, and also looking at different scenarios every year, especially when we get specific information about the coastal flooding. This one we've seen around Durban in Southern Africa, especially when we have the cyclones from Indian Ocean. So we are also looking at those collaboration also with programs like WIMOSA. This is the Western Indian Ocean Observatory, where they do a lot of monitoring of this for Indian Ocean. So this one we can see how they affect the flooded areas. And I think some of the El Ninos we had were like 1997, quite impacted Mombasa and other coastal towns. So this is just some of the possibilities, and also showing you how to access this Africa Job Portal on our website. Go to the platform. Here we have access to different platforms. We have the Africa Job Portal, because this will connect with a point which was raised by one of your colleagues, and how you could just access same data in another platform. So there's also a module where they have presented how to access the coastline data on the Esri Living Atlas, and same examples I was showing you. And also here accessing some of the data sets and also some of the tutorials that we have step by step. Then also just posing at the examples shared with one of your colleagues about the collaboration on the coral reef, which also uses the Esri platform, quite some areas of synergies. And also just looking at the coastline area map, showing you different years. So this is the possibilities you get with this Digital Africa map, showing you the coastline for the whole of coast. And also an additional topic is that using one of these data sets that we have in Digital Africa, we have Sentinel-1, which is a radar imagery at 10 meters from European Space Agency. And this one, we are trying to showcase one of the use cases which was presented earlier on 3 years ago on the congestion of ship around Suez Canal, where there was an event. So using one of the data sets, we could actually capture the events before and after, and seeing the number of ship at different dates. So this just uses Sentinel-1. So don't be shocked what they use at the Marines to monitor the ship, mostly satellite imagery. And sometimes also they use the radar, which is the real time. So also there was mention about the oil spilling, but this depends on specific areas. So using the Sentinel-2 imageries we have at 10 meters, we were able to showcase something to Mauritius, the government. This was around the year 2020, showing you the events before and after on oil spill event. So these events, we can actually be able to monitor them based on the coordinates that you share, and we can have more specific demonstrations when we go to certain areas. And possibly I should be able to show you just how to use the platform, just to give you an idea on how to use the platform. So I'll just pause now for just a second so that I can get to show you the usage of the platform, and also possibly some of the examples that you could explore, especially for our coastal areas. So now moving to the example in mind, at least we've been able to see the examples on the sandbox. Now we're able to show you how, first of all, even to access the Digital Africa maps itself and the platform. So on the platform side, you'll be able to see how to access the Digital South Africa map, the sandbox, and other resources. And on this Digital South Africa map, we can just go to an area, for example, just seeing how the resource is available. So we could move to our coastal area and just move into Mombasa, for example, and we could just showcase how we could load the coastline data once more. So this is the Digital Africa datasets, and we'll be able to load the coastal area, the coastlines itself, and we'll be able to get some very interesting statistics. So looking from colors from above, you can be able to see at least the colors in red showing you some hotspot areas. So when you thought about the coast of Mombasa having been affected, there you could see the others which are more affected than others based on the colors that you've seen. So moving to the coastal area around Lamu specifically, you could see some areas which were quite areas of hotspots of concern. Just looking from these imagery from far, and you could see some of the areas based on the figures we are getting, areas which have really changed over time. And the other thing is that with one of these tools, you can actually just measure how much distance, over 100 meters, areas which have been affected. The coastline has not been very stable over time. Of course, the strong waves and the nature of the coast and the reef, especially around this area, Kibaoni, you see quite affected areas, the coasts being quite sometimes not very predictable based on the waves you get. Then just moving around the coast, you can see Galani River area, quite something else there. Then also around Malindi, see some areas quite affected over time. And you can just see when you go on and on. So we currently have the data up to 2023, and it's based on the Sentinel-2 as an addition. And you can see how you can do some measurements, the change of the costs. And you could also do, if you have good internet, you could also do a 3D kind of as a engagement. So just posing at Watamu, for example. And when I go to the map settings, I can do a 3D terrain or etc. So you're using the Esri base maps, do your 3D, but now this one, things will change a little bit. So you just have to be a little bit patient with the viewing. So you could view things slightly, 4G or 5G or 5K, etc., etc. So because of my connection, I'll put it back to the 2D, which was easier for myself. And also you can change the different views with labels or without labels, so that you can get at least a feel of how much we are viewing and how much change we are capturing from space. Then also taking back to something that you can relate to, at least where we have some labels. Very good work. And for example, you can see what is happening, different areas, different regions. Maybe now in our next session, we can do some exercises on specific areas as our learning. So on our website, Digital Earth Africa, I was able to register some of the emails on the sandbox. This is the sandbox. So you was able to see the sandbox itself. Then also on the Digital Africa, we'll be able to see how we can get the training and help. So I was able to put you guys into the introduction to sandbox course and other courses, so that at least we can see how we can engage ourselves and receive a certificate of participation. In our sandbox, you'll see we have a page which directs you to thematic areas, trying to organize our work much better. So you could also look at coastal area or coastal erosion. We also have a notebook on floating marine debris. For example, if you know some areas which have already affected, and also now going to the courses available. There we also have a course on coastline in English, which will really guide you on how to use the Digital Africa Map, of course, Sandbox, and some of these notebooks, quite a resource, and you get certificate of participation. So we have a lot of resource, and of course, the objective is to take you step by step so that we don't lose you here, and also all the recordings of some of the webinars and sessions we normally put on the Digital Africa YouTube channel. Like today, we'll put it there so that you can be able to follow step by step. Then we'll be able to organize at least for another follow-up so that we'll be more empowered, because we want us to be empowered fully to use this Digital Africa platform. And there is also our contacts so that you can be able to connect with us, and also we'll keep you informed of new services and notebooks, and also any upcoming trainings that we have. Thank you so much. Asante sana.